Hi everyone and welcome back to Purposive Communication class. And for today's class and today's session, we'll be dealing with language varieties and registers of spoken and written language. And this lesson is still part of Purposive Communication. So this lesson is after cultural topic and about cultural barriers of global language. So let's move on, everyone. So for the learning outcomes, as we try to deal with this topic, we're about to apply the varieties and registers of spoken and written language in the proper context. And you need to demonstrate knowledge about the concept of registers of English in spoken and written language. And the third one is about you need to use the appropriate register depending on the communication situation. So let's move on. So as you see here on screen, we do have the different or the three circles of English language. And way back in your subject history of English language class, we have already dealt with this one, which is about the expanding, the outer, and the inner. So when we talk about the inner circle, I know you're very familiar with this one. So if you're in the inner circle, of course, you are called as the native speakers of English language. While on the other hand, if you're going to be into the outer circle, is basically you are the second speaker of the language. So you are the ESL, English as English speakers of the second language. While on the other hand, we do have also this expanding circle. The expanding circle is basically the EFL speakers or the English as a foreign language speakers. So again, these are the three concentric circles of English. Now, what is the importance of understanding the inner, the outer, and expanding circle? You try to look into the differences of each so that you will know also what is the appropriate language are you going to utilize whenever you are into a specific when you are into a specific speaking situation. So if you are into the country or a place where you think that most of the speakers are the native language speakers, of course, there is an appropriate language that you're going to utilize. On the other hand, it's the same thing with the outer circle. So if you are into the place where you think most people are the second language speakers, basically they have a different type of tone of speaking. Of course, you will need to use the appropriate type of spoken or the language written that you're going to utilize po. And also, we do have also the expanding circle. So if you are into the expanding circle, of course, some of the speakers here don't have really the idea on how or they have the zero basis knowledge of speaking the English language itself. So therefore, you need to adapt onto the what type of language, what type of tone, and also the structure of English that they are utilizing. So again, understanding the three types or the three concentric circles of English may help you to understand the appropriateness of the variation of English and the type of register of English that you're going to utilize in any specific speaking situation. So let's move on. So we have what we call the language varieties or variations of English. So what do you mean by the language varieties or variation of English? This is basically more of the type of language that you're going to utilize in a specific speaking situation. So language varies when communicating with people within local and outside or community. Again, language varies also in speaking and writing. If it's about a formal register, or a formal type of variety or informal type of variety. And another one also in terms also of spelling. And language varies also in everyday and specialized courses. And later on, you will try to understand that one. So let's move on. So what do you mean by language registers or register of English? This is basically more of registers of English is basically more of the appropriateness of words that you try to utilize in any speaking situation. So that is what you mean by the language registers. Okay, so language variation that is associated not with the groups of language users but situations of use. This includes the varieties of language that individuals in communities use in the course of their daily living. Okay, so let's move on. So under the language varieties is what we call, or what we have, the dialect. So what do you mean by the dialect? I know you're very familiar with this one. So when we talk about dialect, this is more of lect, which wherein this is derived from the Greek words dias, across, between, and legend, which is about to speak. So when we talk about dialect, this is basically more of a regional or societal variety of language distinguished in pronunciation, grammar, or vocabulary. So if we are here in the Philippines, of course, we do have different dialects. But also, if we are into the native countries, or wherein English language is utilized by the native speakers into the native countries, of course, they have, a different way of their pronunciation, and also the grammar that they are utilizing, and of course, the vocabulary. So again, dialect is basically more of variety of language. So let's move on. So the next one is register. And we have already defined that one a while ago, but we try to intensify the meaning. So again, when we talk about register, this is defined as the way a speaker uses language differently in different circumstances. So again, different types of register vary into the different types of speaking situation. So it varies in terms of words, excuse me. It varies also in terms of the tone of voice and even also your body language. Formal speaking requires formal register. Informal speaking requires informal register. So that's the thing. So let's move on. So these is, or they are determined by such factors such as the social location, the context, the purpose, and of course the audience. So again, registers are marked by the variety of specialized vocabulary and terms of phrases, colloquialism, the use of jargon, and the difference in intonation and pace. So let's move on. Jargon. Jargon is under the type of the variety of language, and at the same time also into the register. Because when we talk about jargon, these are specialized language wherein we try to use it into a specific professional or occupational group. The nursing people have their own sets of jargons of language, and also with teachers and of course the engineers and the other profession. So for example, for us with teachers, we have what we call PT. So, but if it's PT, we try to look into as practice teaching. But if you're going to be looking into that one, into the health fields, so basically when we talk about PT, it's either pregnancy test or a physical therapy. Okay. So again, jargon refers to the specialized language. So this is superficial, stale, frivolous, or false. Okay. So let's move on. We do have different type of lects or the dialects under variety. And we do have what we call the regional dialect, wherein we try to look into variety of spoken into a particular region. Like from the Visayas, Luzon, Mindanao. If we are into the native countries, of course, we do have also a different type of regional dialect also. And also, we do have also the sociolect. Sociolect is basically more of a type of language or a variety of language wherein they are used by different from the socioeconomic class, profession, age group, or any other social group. So what do you mean by socioeconomic class? So from the poor to the rich to the middle class and all. They have different types of language being used. The same thing with the profession, and also the same thing with the teenagers, millennials, other social group like from the LGBT community. They have different types of sociolect. Okay, so let's move on. We do have also the type of like as ethnolect. Ethnolect is basically a type of language or a lect spoken by a specific ethnic group. They are a language which is a vernacular spoken by some particular ethnic, like for example, the African American. Okay. So we do have also the idiolect. Idiolect is basically more of the language or language spoken by each individual. So for example of that one is the multilingual language that wherein a person can speak in different registers and different styles. So we have, diba, we have what we call into society wherein he is an idiolect because he can speak a different or more languages. Okay, more different types of languages. Right. So language varieties or lects that people speak often serve as the basis for judgment and even exclusion from certain social groups, professions, and business organizations. So as you study language varieties, keep in mind that they are often based on judgment one group in making in regards to another. So basically, when we try to look into what type of language variety are you trying to utilize, is you try, anyone can judge you already what type of group do you belong with. Do you belong with social group, with middle class, poor, and also the rich people? Or are you from the professionals or the professional groups of into the health, into the social science group, or in lawyers, nurses, like that, or the business organization? So again, as you study language varieties, you try to look into the base of judgment of the type of group do you belong with. Okay, so let's now move on. We do have different types or of what's this? Varieties of language, wherein, like, for example, the Creole, the Pidgin, and the Patois. Okay? So the Pidgin and the Creole, they are two terms, and sometimes used interchangeably by the general population and have specific differences in the world of linguistics. So the Pidgin is basically the description as a blend of several different languages spoken by a multicultural population into one mutually understood language. And an example of it is wherein the speakers create a mutual language using words from the speaker's mother tongue and an extremely flexible, simplified grammar. So an example of a pidgin is a conyo, the language of the Atinista, like that. So this is a colloquial meaning that differs from Spanish origin and isn't vulgar at all. So as said in the definition above, it refers to the way of speaking or one who speaks Taglish or with an English accent, usually associated with upper class citizen, because such is the stereotype in the Filipino pop culture. Next one is the Creole. So a Creole is a language of mixture of multiple languages. But in this case, the new mixed language becomes the native language for the majority of its speakers. And of course, a vocabulary extensively borrowed from other languages. So grammar and syntax are as fully developed as any other long established tongue. So as you see po, language really, changes over time. That's why, there's a mixture of language already. So the examples of that one is the Chabacano, wherein this is a Philippine Creole Spanish, a Spanish-based Creole spoken in parts of the Philippines, and especially in and around of the city of Zamboanga, wherein there is a mixture of the dialect of Zamboanga and also the mixture of Semporna, Malaysia. So that is Creole. Next one is Patois. Patois is a speech or language that is considered non-standard, although the term is not formally defined in linguistics. So as such, Patois can refer to Pidgin, Creole, dialect, or vernacular, but not commonly to jargon or slang, which are vocabulary-based forms of cant. Okay, so in colloquial use of the term, especially in France, class distinction are applied by the meaning of the term, since in French, Patois refers to any socialite associated with uneducated rural classes. So in contrast with the dominant prestige language, spoken by the middle and high classes of cities, or as used in literature and formal setting. Okay? So we have the Jamaican Patois, wherein there is a spoken primarily in Jamaica, in the Jamaican diaspora, and spoken by the majority of the Jamaican as a native language. So like, hi, how you doing? Wherein the meaning is, hi, how are you? So me, all right, man. And then I am all right, man. Me, curse, man. I am good, man. So me, a chill. I am taking it easy. So those are the examples of Patois. Okay? So let's move on. So these are the definition of Pidgin and Creole. And if you're going to be looking into the differences, if it's Pidgin, no native speaker. If it's Creole, native speaker exists. Pidgin, mixing of language. Creole, mixed language associated with cultural and often racial mixture. And then reduced grammar and vocabulary, while for Creole, have parents who use Pidgin. So let's move on to language register. So we do have, there are 5 language registers or style. Each level has an appropriate use that is determined by different situation. So again, language registers determines the language or the appropriateness of language in terms of different speaking situation. In terms of what appropriate language are you going to use depending on the type of audience you're talking with, and the type of topic, the purpose of spoken, the speaking communication or speaking context, and the location itself. Okay, so of course, when we talk about who, meaning the people, what, meaning what is being talked about, why, of course, why are they talking to each other, and the location, of course, is the place where they are talking. Okay, let's move on. So you must control the use of language registers in order to enjoy success in every aspect and situation you encounter. So the first one that we have is the static register. So the static register is basically more of what we call way back when you were in senior high school as the frozen language. So what do you mean by frozen language? Frozen language is a type of language or a type of register wherein this is memorized. And at the same time, not only memorized, but they have a specific intonation. So this style of communication rarely or never changes. So it is frozen in time and content. So the example of that one, the Pledge of Alliance, the Lord's Prayer, the Preamble, the Alma Mater, and the others. So second one is the formal register. Formal register is a type of register wherein you try to use this formal type of language in a formal situation. So what are the formal situation? For example, you are into a presentation of your research, you are into a job interview, again, formal speaking situation. So the examples of that one, for example, is when you are doing the speeches, pronouncement, announcement, like that. So again, you're going to use a formal register. So if it's a formal register, of course, you're going to use a formal type of language wherein the one that is acceptable format. Okay? So let's move on. So next one is consultative register. I know you're very familiar with this one. This one is a type of register wherein there is a counseling, questioning, like that. So the example of that one is basically more of a type of situation wherein they are in partners into client and clientele. So the example of that one is the doctor and patient, the superior and subordinate, the lawyer and client, the lawyer and judge, a teacher and student, the counselor and client. So this is a type of register wherein this is a structured communication. What do you mean by structured communication? Meaning there is a process of communication wherein they are following. So from the introduction, going to from the greetings, going to the introduction, looking into the purpose, and then feedbacking the purpose, and then the communication will end with a greeting. So again, that is consultative register. So let's move on. Next one is a fourth one, which is about the casual register. And this casual register is a type of register wherein you try to use this one as in a daily basis, a case-to-case basis in a daily basis. Okay? So this is using informal language, utilizing into your peers and friends, wherein you try to use slang, vulgar, colloquialism, and like that. So one must remember to engage in this register like your buddies, teammates, chats, emails, blogs, letter to friends. So basically more of you're using informal type of language, informal words and all. So no restriction at all. Unlike informal register. Next one is the intimate register. Intimate, with the word intimate, intimacy, there is a relationship. There is a close relationship between 2 or 3 or 4 people. Okay? So intimate register is basically more of partners, meaning this type of communication is basically more of a close, a language that is utilized in a close family members, with intimate people like the husband and wife, the boyfriend and girlfriend, the siblings, the parents and children. Okay, wherein there is a type of caring, and also the type of language that you're utilizing is more of sometimes it's sensual, sometimes it's too caring, sweet, like that, because again, there is an intimacy in this type of register. So again, what type of register are you going to use? Again, you need to look into the type of situation or the kind of situation that you are dealing with. Different situation requires different types of register. Okay? So again, maraming salamat and thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned something with the varieties of language and or the variations of language and register. Thank you so much everyone. Maraming salamat po.